Whichever one you're more
Wait, was she
comfortable
just talking to a mic that wasn't on that whole time? Oh, Deborah, that was such a...
The camera needs the mic.
That's fine. I'm happy to use the mic.
They don't care what it is.
Deborah, that was a beautiful introduction, and thank you for giving such a good overview of who I am, because that will allow me to skip some of that in my own comments. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I was downstairs earlier today looking at some like old calendars that are outside the gallery that from this talk series, and I was like, wow, like some really amazing artists have been standing, not exactly in this place, because apparently you've moved it, but in this place metaphorically. So it's like a super honor to be here, and thank you, Deborah, for inviting me, and everyone for helping me today. I had a great day doing studio visits with grad students here, and it just made me feel super nostalgic for my time in art school, which was, unfortunately, I've now realized 20 years ago. I graduated with my MFA from RPI, which is in Troy, New York, with a degree in something called Integrated Electronic Arts, which no one knows what that means, but it was basically like multimedia, digital art, kind of. It was a very odd place for me to land in a way, because I never imagined I would be an artist. All the way up until a couple years before graduate school, all of my art making was like exclusively gift-based, like elaborate mixtapes for friends, or like really elaborate letters or birthday cards, or like, photo albums, the gifts or journals. So either very private or work that I was making not as art in any way that I was thinking of. And so it was only after spending a couple years working at a community media center, which was called the Children's Media Project. And this was a place that was dedicated to teaching young people the tools of art and mostly filmmaking. And so I watched little kids as young as 5 learning to make their own video, making their own video art. And I was like, that looks fun. Like, that looks fun. I want to do that. Like, I want to do what they're doing. And I never could have taken a filmmaking class as an undergraduate. I had no sense of self-confidence that I could like make art and then present it for evaluation to my peers for a grade. Like, that just is so crazy. Like, I still can't imagine doing that at that age. So like, anyone who ever did that was super brave. And during my 13 years of being a college professor of undergraduates, I always told my students that in the first day of class, because it's tremendously vulnerable to do that. So anyway, so it was the kids that gave me the inspiration, like watching them. They're so free. They don't care if it's cool. They don't care if it's good. They've never heard of Godard. Like, they're just like doing stuff for the love of it. And I was like, this is the space where I stepped into art, started making videos, kind of didn't know how. They came out weird, so it was art, And then I ended up doing this degree at RPI, and had no plan. Like, it was sort of just like it was funded, and it was 2 years, and I had some friends that were going there, and it just seemed like a cool next chapter after my years of doing that nonprofit work. And I just look back on that time as this very special opportunity. Like, it's really rare to have the opportunity in your life to like mess around in the studio without like tons of outside pressures coming at you. In most cases, you'll probably never have it again, like there's a kind of specialness to it. So it was very fun today to like hang out with some students and see what they're up to and hear their ideas, and just think about how foundational it was for me to have those 2 years where I was just kind of exploring. I made sound art, I made websites, I made videos, I made video installations, I tried performance art. I was bad at most of this stuff. But I wanted to show you as a special treat tonight something that is not publicly available, and it's the first thing I made in graduate school that was good. And it was the first thing I made where I was like, okay, like I starting to figure out like some of the things that Deborah just talked about. Like what it is that actually concerns me, what it is that actually would make me like stay up all night editing. like what it was that made me want to make the next thing. Like, you know, it wasn't, there was a lot of things it wasn't. And so I want to show you with this 10-minute film that I also can't show publicly because it's super illegal and possibly unethical. So there's some fun things to talk about with that, but I can explain. So I'm going to show you this film. It's 10 minutes long, and then we'll talk. And then I should say, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the last 20 years, and then show you 10 minutes from Confessions of a Good Samaritan, which is the film I'm showing tomorrow night. So I basically want to talk today about how my time in graduate school sort of laid the groundwork for everything that came after, even my life as a professional documentary filmmaker. Sorry about that. Hopefully that will not make more noise. Okay. Oh, Deborah, you've never seen this one. Let me tell you. No one's seen this one.
Do we have a option of less lights up front? That switch there, Deborah. To the right, to the right. This one really knows. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Dear Penny, we sincerely hope you will enjoy life on the farm as much as we did for so many happy years. Life in Singapore is still strange for us, but knowing that our new tenant is breathing new life into the farmhouse is a great comfort to us. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you in person. The realtor assures me you are a lovely young woman and that you are studying art. I myself fancied watercoloring when I was your age. I assume you'll be making the violet room your bedroom, it being the most feminine, and it does get the best sunlight in the mornings. Please make yourself at home and rearrange our furnishings, etc. as needed. Forgot to tell you not to give out any info on us over the phone or otherwise. We especially do not want our eldest daughter, Eve Portia Littleton Rodriguez, to get any information about us, our schedule, the house, or anything. Best not to give any info to anyone to be safe. Also, we have a standing request that if she should arrive with baby in arm or not, to call 911 and ask that she be told to leave the premises. There is only about a 0.5% chance she would ever do it, but if she does, please don't hesitate to call 911 if she doesn't drive right away. She was thrown out of Vassar College for grave cause and has gone steadily downhill ever since. She has a borderline personality disorder and is a sociopath and a pathological liar. So despite her movie star good looks, we all, need to beware. Forgot to mention it. Don't bring it up to Mr. Littleton. He's a bit touchy about it all. Here's wishing for a lovely spring on the farm. Do send us pictures of the tulips when they are in bloom. I miss them so. Thanks, Mrs. Littleton.
Dear Mrs. Littleton, thank you so much for your warm welcome. I was not expecting it. I feel like an honored guest more than just a tenant. I can't tell you how much this house reminds me of the house that I grew up in. It's really amazing. My friends write and they wonder how I can stand it out here by myself, but honestly, I don't feel lonely at all. I feel like I'm home. I know it's crazy, but it's true. I completely understand the situation with your daughter, Eve. I will certainly keep it in mind and let you know if she turns up, God forbid. From the sound of it, my mother suffers from many of the same problems as Eve, the lying especially. having grown up with it, I know all too well the way someone like that can disrupt an otherwise perfectly happy family. I haven't spoken to her in years, so I can also appreciate how much that loss must pain me. I have some projects in mind for my time here, and one big one especially. It's sort of a self-portrait. There's quite a frost these days, but I can already imagine the tulips coming up. This time of year fills me with great hope. Best regards, Penny.
Dear Penny, I'm just thrilled to hear you are enjoying your stay at the farmhouse. I feel so relieved knowing that there is someone there to tend to our home with such loving care.
The tulips are up and the birds are singing and there's worms crawling all over. The house is awakening from the long slumber of winter and everything's just humming with new life. I wish you could see it. I've made up my mind. I'm going to fix up the barn and get that garden going again this summer. You won't believe how good this place is going to look when you get back. I've actually been thinking a lot about sticking around, staying in the area for a while. School can wait another year, don't you think?
this, but obviously, so a little explanation, I think, is in order, because I told you that mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. So, you know, the backstory is that I rented a house, and the house was like a museum of another family's life. Like, it was like truly, they didn't like make any effort to make space for a tenant. So like every drawer, every closet, like truly, it was like you didn't have to go looking for it. It was like you were in this museum. So, and then I got this series of emails from the landlord about this daughter and how I should beware and like all this stuff in there. And I, of course, became very intrigued. And I sort of started snooping, and I kind of was like, I mean, it sort of feels like they're asking for it. Like, I didn't need to look that hard. It was all like right there. And I found Eve's, her name's not really Eve, but I'll call her Eve. I found Eve's art in the attic, the drawings and all that stuff. And yeah, the vulture eating the brain, like, you know, this like sort of sad, weird, it was cool. But also other kind of artifacts of the family's life that felt kind of stuck in the 1950s. Like, it was a kind of oddly 1950s world. Anyway, so I started putting this film together because I was interested in this mystery of this like missing daughter, and I like really couldn't get enough. Like, I was really like, you know, and I did start to feel like I was kind of inhabiting her spirit, like that, as if I was like, you know, and that became like a fun thing to explore as a graduate student. Like, I was like having a great time, and I was just sort of figuring this out, and I kind of struck upon this idea that you saw, which was kind of this epistolary format, these letters back and forth, most of which have been made up, right? Like, there was kind of a kernel of truth to them. I never wrote back and said I was planting tulips or any of that kind of stuff. I never wrote back at all. It was very creepy, these messages. And so, long story short, I put it together over the course of like, you know, one of my years in grad school, maybe over one semester, maybe 2 semesters, I don't remember. And I really was very pleased with it, and I felt like it was the first thing I made that I felt like this is like me. I feel like this is what I want to do. And so I started submitting it to film festivals, and it like did pretty well, and it sort of started screening around and like doing stuff, and then I ended up getting it on like a cable, like a couple like local PBS stations. Like, it was really like kind of oddly successful. And then I received a cease and desist letter from a lawyer because the family about whom this movie is extremely thinly veiled, like the amount of anonymizing I did was not enough. I changed their names, but in a way that's like, wouldn't take you a lot to guess if you knew them, that it was them. I showed the real outside of their house, right, which is a big no-no. That was what the lawyer I eventually talked to told me. You know, so it could have played if I had done some smarter things, but I just like wasn't. When you're in school, I mean, I wasn't thinking anyone was going to see this. And also, maybe it'd be different now because you have the internet, but there was no such thing then. So this was like literally circulating on VHS tapes. And I just, on no planet did I ever imagine they would ever know that I'd made this. And I felt pretty horrible about it, to be honest. Like, I made up a bunch of stuff about a family, barely concealed their identities, and then put it on television. Like, it was like really wrong. But I didn't see any of that at the time. So this all sort of got me started on the whole journey of my career, because there was like the idea of it being a true story that was like super important to me artistically. I put it in the title, We Are the Littletons, a true story, was like very important to me. I was like really intrigued by that. But I also like really wanted to tweak at the edge of what I meant by saying it was a true story. Obviously, it's mostly a lot made up. And then also I had this like immediate collision with the ethics of documentary, like an immediate, like it wasn't like a gradual dip my toes in the water, it was like a legal dispute immediately. I was like, oh shit, like I need to be a lot more careful and like aware of what I'm doing, like especially with someone else's story. So I pulled it out of circulation. Like you can't find this film on the internet or anything like that. Like it's something that I show in only contexts like this to be able to share the mistakes that I made, and also to be able to talk about like why it was so foundational for me as an artist. So yeah, I don't know that I need to say much more about that. I might just jump ahead. So I graduated from that program in 2006, and I began my time. So my title of my talk is Making Art and Making a Living, and I'm just super committed to the idea of being transparent about the elements of how artists actually are able to pay the bills, you know? So for me, I don't come from money. I don't have like any kind of safety net in that way. So I needed to work. Like working was very key. So I always knew that I would be teaching. I loved teaching. I loved teaching long before I loved being an artist. I was even like a camp counselor in high school. Like I've always been in that mold. Always loved it. And also I loved my teachers so much that I always wanted to be like them. So I became a college professor right out of graduate school. And I had a series of really great jobs over the course of 12 years, maybe 12 or 13 years. And it was in that context that I was able to extend that sense of being sort of protected from the market and being able to kind of extend that sense of like having a studio practice where you can kind of try and fail and just see what happens and not be worried that if that particular work of art wasn't a hit, that you wouldn't be able to pay your bills. Like, so I was kind of like really fortunate, and I wanted to really take advantage of that as long as I could. Because it really was like extending that 2 years of grad school. Like I was like, okay, I still feel like I'm kind of doing that, you know, with the studio practice, that I can just kind of try stuff out. My ambitions kind of grew. I started out trying to be a video artist. I was not a good video artist. I never really made it. I mean, I was never going to be a great video artist. I could just like sort of tell. And I sort of started to understand that what I really cared about in a more fundamental way was storytelling, and that was kind of going to push me more into more proper documentary film. It seemed like that's kind of very gradually where I went. And very gradually, as in, you know, the first few features were very much like more video art than not, you know? But at some point when I left my teaching career, I started to only make films that I was able to like sell in the marketplace, pay my rent, pay my bills, pay my staff, right? So that's really the shift, where it's no longer me playing in my studio. Like those days are over. Like I now have to, you know, figure out how we're gonna pay our production company like overhead every month and keep my employees' health insurance going, pay my own rent, et cetera. So it's a very different world, but the parts of what I learned from being in art school and being an artist still really apply. And some of those things are being very open to different forms. Every film I've made is very different formally from the one next to it. I've worked in all archival films. I've made YouTube compilation films. I've made animated films. I've made music documentaries. I've made first-person films. Like I'm kind of very agnostic on form, and I feel like that's part of my willingness to kind of play and just sort of do whatever and like not be too stressed if it doesn't become like my favorite thing. Like you're not gonna catch me doing another animated documentary anytime soon. That's okay, the one I made is great. I'm very proud of it. But you know, that wasn't the thing. Like I'm just kind of still exploring. That was one thing. And the second thing is that it's easy to take for granted in this context that everything you're making is artist created, artist driven. In the film world, we call this like auteurism or something. It's like a whole special way of thinking. Like it's not typical. Most people don't look at a documentary film and even know there is a director. Like they don't even think about the director. Like they think, oh, a Netflix documentary. They don't like, and on like the HBO platform, it makes me crazy. You can't even find the director's name. Like it's like hidden. So like in the film world, like the whole notion that everything I make is deeply connected to who I am personally as an artist and my particular concerns makes me unique. And I think it has a lot to do with why I've been successful, that I had that time to really like settle in and like really root down and like my particular concerns, my particular interests, my particular way of thinking about images, like all of that I think has really served me, because there's a lot of anonymous, replaceable documentary directors out there, sorry. But there are, and they work too, you know, but I think I've been able to like carve out a career that's very unique because I had that special time of like really being protected from, yeah, like I said, the market or whatever. But I've also been very entrepreneurial the whole time. And that's the other thing that's super important to say. Even while I was a professor, Like my thesis film from graduate school was a half an hour documentary, pretty straightforward documentary called The Abortion Diaries. And it's, it's 12 women telling the stories of their abortions. It's not an art film. It was a controversial pick for my MFA thesis for that reason, but it was what I was doing at that time, and it was what I was committed to at that time, and my faculty supported me in like that exploration. And they were like, okay, we're gonna make a straightforward documentary, let's make it as good as it can be, because I wanted it to play for a general audience. Like that was like very important to me, but I also knew that I wanted to like tour the country with this film. So I booked my own like cross-country tours. I spent 2 years distributing that film myself. I made DVDs, I put them in the trunk of the car, I drove around, I sold them for $10 each, and I like paid some bills that way, right? So it was like a combination of wanting to feel like my work actually had an audience that I could like see and connect with. That was so important to me as an artist. Like I just didn't want it to be the mixtape under the bed. Like I really wanted to feel like it was in the world, but I also needed to make money. So like the combination of those two things, I think like really like set me off on this path, and with a very like sense that I needed to be entrepreneurial and I needed to like run my own show, and I had to like create, now you would use shitty language, like a brand. I didn't know that language then, but that's what I was doing. I was like building this brand. I was like meeting people, putting people on an email list, right? Staying in touch, and then even as my work has been totally heterogeneous and all over the map, I have developed an actual fan base like that I can take with me from project to project. And again, that's not by accident, and it's not just because I made films. It was like work that I did. Like I crowdfunded 4 of my 8 features, and again, those people, giving people an opportunity to like take part in your art and like get on board and like become your supporter, it's just like a really meaningful and important thing to do in a very crowded media landscape. So I just think that's super important for you to think about as you're like looking into the future. You have to kind of like think also about creating opportunities for exhibition. I was saying to Deborah before I got up here, sitting at home waiting for a yes or no feels very disempowering to me, like really disempowering and hard. So I can like, the extent to which I can like build my own thing, I feel empowered, and I feel like this is like, I can do this myself. Like I can always figure out a way to do this myself, and I feel like that's very important to me. So I thought I would show you just the first 10 minutes of this film, Confessions of a Good Samaritan. I thought it would be a good counterpoint to like kind of give you a sense of, again, you just saw where I started and kind of like where I landed, or where I am-ish today. This film was independently financed, so there was a crowdfunding campaign associated with it. There was sort of some grant philanthropic type support, and then I had an independent investor come on and like pay for the rest of it. So it was made totally independently, without like studios or without streamers attached. And I'll just show you the first 10 minutes, and we'll talk more about that, and then we can get into questions. This will be a little louder because I have a professional sound mix now. Like my graduate student mix. A little low. Hi. Is the mic turned off? I don't know. So you can see in the first 10 minutes already some of the principles that I had with the project. I really didn't want to make a PSA. Like, I really didn't actually. I didn't and I don't feel comfortable being like an advocate for kidney donation. On the one hand, it's absolutely true, everything you just heard, that there's a need, that most people think it's harder than it is, and that I know that I wouldn't, I get into this later in the film, I know that I wouldn't have had the idea to do it if someone else hadn't like made some written article about it. You know, there was like a guy wrote a blog, and I read about that, and I was like, what a good idea, you know. So I also understood that there was value. Like I couldn't resist the sense that I could help someone else know this was an option, but I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone to do it. So it was a very difficult film to make because I wanted to walk that line, and I wanted to be honest about my experience. And if you watch the whole film, it's on Netflix now, so even if you can't come to DePaul tomorrow, it's at 5:30, I just found out. You can watch it there, and it's actually like it's a kind of a journey. It was not anything like what I thought it would be. It was a lot harder than I thought it would be. It brought up a lot of emotional shit that I didn't know I had. And I unfortunately had trapped myself into making a film about it, which I'm sure made it harder and worse for me personally. It was not therapeutic at all. And I had to really look at myself in a way that I didn't actually want to, but I thought I was going to be able to like get away with being like a little bit in the movie, like a little bit. But that like things I really cared about, which you haven't seen yet because you're still in the intro, there's like the whole history of kidney donation. There's like the bioethical debates around it. There's like the whole notion of like what you owe a stranger. Like there's all these kind of like really cool philosophical, bioethical, historical, scientific questions that I really wanted to get into. But once we started the edit, it just became clear that if I was going to put myself in the film and I was going to be the person doing the thing, that I was going to have to like do the work to make that person the real protagonist of the film, and that we were gonna have to go deep on that. So I ended up taking up half the movie on like Penny's journey, which I'm still mad about, but that's what the movie needed. That's what the movie needed to work. So it was not my choice. Like, sometimes you get into these things and there's a point where it's no longer your decision. It's like, what's gonna make it work? That said, my anti-advocacy stance did not help the film reach a wide audience whatsoever. I should have made a nicer PSA movie if I wanted to reach a really wide audience. The film is like very morally murky, complicated, pretty dark in times, like really dark in times. It does have a happy ending. I'm still standing here, obviously. My donation was successful and I'm fine. But the movie sort of like really does try to be honest about the sort of complexity of the experience and just the weirdness of the whole thing. But the thing I wanted to say also is that in the same category as at some point your decisions aren't your own, the pandemic happened during the course of making this movie as well, which also completely changed the shooting plan. Like we had a very different production plan at the beginning that involved filming a lot in hospitals, and that was no longer on the table. So some of what emerged, the desktop motif, for example, emerged out of necessity and responding to what was possible to do in that moment in history to like finish a movie. The desktop motif also worked because I, like many I always say documentaries have a very common problem. It's actually almost 100% true, that the beginning is always a challenge because in like a fiction film, you'd write the beginning, you'd write some sort of inciting incident, and you'd be there and the camera would be on at that moment. That's like never true in documentary, like very rarely, right? Because the whole reason you knew to pick up the camera was that the inciting incidents already occurred, and so you have to kind of figure out how to catch up. So to a greater or lesser extent, depending on your subject matter. And by the time I committed to making this film and had any funding to work on it, I was a week away from surgery. So I had missed the whole first part. I had missed the part where I had the idea to do it. I missed the part where I went in and had all my scans and my tests and my screening, all of which I explain in the film. But I wasn't there, I couldn't film it. So the diary was all I had as a contemporaneous record of what had happened. And so I started trying to play around with like this typing and the diary and like this kind of intimacy of watching someone type. And that became like a big necessity in the film as well. So the desktop motif helped to make the diary work too. After a long failed experiment of faking some video diaries, which felt about as authentic as you think. Because I was like, we need images, this movie has no images. And I tried. I spent like 6 months faking these like iPhone video diaries and threw them all away. They were bad. They were super bad. So we went to the typing, we went with it. So the movie did well, so it premiered at South by Southwest. It did like a pretty good festival tour. It was funded. I paid people. That's the new standard. Like, did I pay my collaborators well, appropriately? Like, it's a success, if so. But it did well on the festival circuit. And then, as I said, it was licensed by Netflix, which was a big shock. And there it sits, unwatched and unfound, and you will never find it by accident, like I promise. You could type in the title of the film and you could find it, but it's not going to get fed to you in Discovery. It's just sitting there. But that's okay. It makes me feel like it's a real movie because it's on Netflix and I can watch it with those little subtitles on, and I'm like, wow, it's like a movie now. It's a real movie. Yeah, please do. That's pretty much the end of what I wanted to like talk about. So yeah, let's go into questions. Yeah, there's like a, all right.
Hello?
Hello.
Thanks, Danny. I was in the film in the grad school film you shared with us. I was curious if the detail about the family having adopted all their kids was something you constructed or real, because I was thinking a lot about these, virtue signaling or sort of these constructions of altruism, and whether that had been something that the kernel of was there, because it starts to come out a little, and I was like, oh, is this Penny script writing, or is this part of what you gleaned from their family?
So that was true. All the kids were adopted. And I only knew that because of the neighbors. Although apparently you can't
You're
trust the
not supposed to
neighbors to
talk
say one
with-
true
yeah.
thing, so I don't know. But yeah, they were all adopted. Oh, I didn't even tell you this. Sorry, there's a whole important subplot with that. So let's go there now because I got to tell you this. It's so good. So I got the cease and desist letter. That happened. I took the film off of, the internet and made sure it was gone from public viewing. And then a couple years later, I got a letter from Eve, who was like, I saw your documentary about me. And I was not using the word documentary at that time,
Right.
but, it was, I guess. Anyway, so she said, I saw your documentary about me, and I'm really excited about it because I'm hoping that you have my art. I'm hoping that you have, like, some of that art that you filmed. And I was like, no, I'm sorry, I left it at the house. I didn't steal it. Like, even I have my limits ethically. So, no, I didn't. But then we talked, and I met her. And she was, and we're still, like, connected on Facebook. And I met her, and I met her daughter. And we talked for a while about creating some sort of collaboration, kind of follow-up, maybe full-length version, but it kind of fell apart because she didn't have very realistic ideas about what that would look like. She seemed to think that we would just like walk into the Lifetime Channel building and be like, I have a story, and I was like, no, it would be like so it kind of fell apart, and it didn't feel emotionally super safe for me. She was a pretty complicated person. She is a lovely person in many ways, but also complicated. Anyway, I had to mention that. I forgot to tell you that postscript. It's so good. Getting the letter from Eve was like a pretty major follow-up. Okay, other questions about anything at all? Films, my career, my name.
Hello. I saw a lot of your films when I was first starting making paintings, so I want to thank you because I love a lot of them. I was wondering if you have, obviously you're a documentary filmmaker, but do you have like a supplemental practice that helps you kind of turn the idea wheel that you find helpful in coming up with ideas for films?
Oh, it's such a good question. I love that question. I have really leaned into the collaborative nature of the work, like that, so one of the things I was talking about with the students I met with earlier today was how you know, when you're starting out, you sort of do everything yourself, and you kind of try on all the hats, and you sort of figure out like what you love and what you kind of tolerate and what you're bad at, you know. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but when you see the We Are the Littletons, yeah, I was not a camera person. Like, I was not a camera person. Like, I was never able to take the amount of time it takes to really set up a good shot. Like, I was just like, good enough, you know, and I look back on it, and I'm like, you could have taken 5 more minutes and maybe, like, framed that mirror a little better, or, like, maybe the camera could not be shaking the whole time, like, you know, so I just was not a camera person. So the first way that I started collaborating was with camera people, right? And then I kind of, over time, really specialized and became a director, and just a director. So I say all that because everything I do is in collaboration, every single thing. Like, I actually can't do anything myself at this point. I've, like, lost the ability to edit. I'm very slow. Like, I'm in theory a good editor in my head, but my hands are behind, you know? I don't shoot on my own, so I need to be able to communicate clearly with my DPs. So everything I do now is in this conversation with the people around me, particularly my producers who work with me in my company. So we have weekly development meetings, and I come into the development meetings and I pitch them ideas, and I do it constantly. I try to do like 10 a month, and like just all the time, like just every day, like as much as possible, like write 1 paragraph. Like, I'm constantly generating like 1 paragraph pitches. And then as soon as I say them out loud, I can tell if they're good or not. And I didn't know until I had to look someone in the face and see how bored they were, or like how puzzled, you know, it's like, okay, this isn't working. Most of the time they're shitty ideas. That's normal. But so it's very much about like talking to people and then seeing what makes them look excited, like what makes someone else look like, oh, that's an idea, you know? More recently, I've been going further because I think that the money is drying up that's been flowing into the coffers in my production company, and I need to go back to my roots, really, and be more indie again. Like, I need to sort of start figuring out that attitude I had when I got in the car and drove around with the DVDs, because a lot of that money is just kind of gone. So I'm like also thinking about like what's gonna play, like what is gonna sell actual tickets to get actual people in a theater, like very direct, like what is key art that will pop on Instagram, like literally, like I'm thinking about like marketing more directly than I have been, because I've had the luxury of letting, for some reason, someone give me much more than $1 million to make my weird kidney movie that like nobody wanted. That's not happening right now. Like, I don't think I'm gonna get a movie like that funded in 2026 or 2027 at that level. So I'm like, okay, like what is something that I can crowdfund? What is something that I think will hit with philanthropists? What is something that I think I can like directly sell tickets to or directly sell Blu-rays? So I'm just sort of like, now I've added this poster. That's why I'm bringing it up. So I've started making posters for the idea at the development stage. And part of our evaluation, I'm serious, man, laugh away. Wait, and here's where I got the idea, and you'll love this. I got the idea because I read a memoir of a guy who ran a straight-to-video, like B-movie horror studio in the 1980s called New Moon. And it's a book called It Came from the Video Aisle. And I learned that practice from them. They would develop ideas, and they would put a poster, a title, and a tagline. And they would put them up around the wall and just vote on like the best poster. Like, what's the poster that's gonna sell? People are gonna walk into that video store, which one is gonna make someone pick that video off the shelf? And I am not making B movies, and I'm not making horror, but like, I love that spirit. I'm like, okay, I can do that. So that's another added thing now, because I have to really be clear about the market. And one thing that's really fucked me up, pardon my language, during this like streaming boom where all this money came in, is a complete lack of perspective of what the budgets of these films should be based on how many people actually want to see it. Like, that has been so divorced from reality, like that I have no idea anymore how to budget my films. Like, the budgets just went up, which I love because I pay health insurance and I love that, and you know, that's been beautiful and a really meaningful experience for me. But I'm like, that's over, so now I gotta figure out, like, what is the budget for this film? Like, what is, based on the actual market of humans who might rent it, buy it, come to a movie theater, et cetera. Sorry, it's a long answer to your question, but I thought it was an important thing to add. Like, that right now I'm being very like strategic, because I have a million ideas and they're all like good, and like, you know, they're all goodish, they're all good. Like, they're all good. They're all worth doing. But which ones can I actually make go in the market today?
And
The Flaco film have a poster first?
No, the Flacco movie was funded in the old model. That's the final movie in my career, probably. That was a big budget HBO production. So that's probably the last of those. I don't know. I hope I made the most of this era. I made 6 feature films in that era, like I'm happy. I made 8 total, but 6 like in a kind of professional context where others paid me to make the movie. That's great. I don't know. We'll see what happens next. Other questions?
Okay, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Where do I want to start? First question is okay, so speaking as a filmmaker who's like trying to see projects through, trying to resource people fairly, trying to exist in the, fascist hellscape type of thing. How do you sustain the confidence and vision in your project even when it hits like your soft parts? It hits the parts, we make films to explore those parts of ourselves, and we work with others to explore, to get better and get to know ourselves and other people. How do you see projects through? I'm thinking of the Good Samaritan one because it sounds like COVID was a big, thing that happened in the middle. So through setbacks and stuff, what advice would you give to filmmakers to finish something?
Great question. It's easy to focus on myself and say I can't say why, but I feel that I have a lot of grit and tenacity, and I think that's just kind of part of me, and it's just been there, and so there's that, which I think is relevant, right? Most people do give up. It's really hard. It's really hard to make anything and to finish it and to see it through. But it's probably more truthfully that I talked earlier about building a little bit of a direct relationship with a very small fan base, but that exists. And I've always been, I would have said online, but now I'll say I've always been a content creator. I'm creating a new language for this because I'm being more intentional about it now. And that is very important. And I realized looking back that the crowdfunding campaigns I did were experiments in content creation. I was making fun videos with little hooks and doing behind the scenes and inviting people into the process of making the work. And that is again, some of the smartest thing I ever did, because I've had a sense that there are actual humans in the world who are not my friends and family, who are also important to the story, of course. But the people that exist in the world that are not my friends and family that actually care that I'm doing this stuff has been a source of great strength to me. Knowing that that's real, that that's not made up. And again, I've been blessed to have a Guggenheim Fellowship or a Creative Capital grant. These are hugely big blessings in my life, but they have not meant to me, in terms of going on, continuing, having confidence, what that has meant to me. Does that make sense? Just really feeling not that I wrote a good grant or got picked in the lottery, Powerball. Why? Why did I get a Guggenheim? Why did I get a grant? I don't really have an answer to that, but I could say when I showed Hail Satan at the Music Box Theater, there was a line around the block. That's real, and that is something I can remember when I'm feeling shitty, which is most of the time, because it's mostly rejection and failure, and that's what artist life is. It's mostly failure and rejection. It's mostly rejections.
This is a two-parter. I'll make it quick. How do you talk about what most people consider kind of I don't know, not fun to talk about, the money stuff, the reality that most of us have to work with, make things that sustain us. How do you navigate being part of an art world or a film world where there's lots of people for whom that's not the case, where they can get projects funded by family
I feel it's a blessing. I really do. I actually, I was saying before, feel having the feeling of infinite resources, which wasn't infinite. I mean, it's not I was getting, and just to be clear, these budgets, most of the money went to my collaborator. It was not I put all that money in the bank. I didn't make that much money during this period. But anyway, having that sort of money faucet turn on over the last 6 years of my career, I don't think, I think I lost touch with like what I actually care about, which is like really reaching people and like, wait, I lost track of why I'm bringing this up. The money thing. Oh,
how do
I
you do
feel
it?
blessed that I've had to work for a living. That's what I'm getting at. I actually think we all wish we had infinite money and could go off alone into the woods and just do whatever we want, right? Never take a note. Doesn't that sound great? No critique. Just like all by yourself. But like, I just know that I would make shit art in that context. And so I think I've never had the division in my mind. Like I don't think that like the part of my brain that's like good at marketing or good at business is like at war with my artist self at all. Like I've never felt a conflict between that. And I know that makes me different because a lot of my friends look at me with pity and like cringe because I'm like, I'm making content for Substack and I'm like making fucking money doing it. And like, yeah, it's dope, but like, it doesn't, I have a lot of friends that just have a very different socioeconomic background and they just look at me like they're so sorry. Like they think I'm doing something so embarrassing or like base. And I just don't, I mean, I get it, but I don't feel that way. I just feel like this is me like reaching out. This is me putting myself in public. This is me saying like, here's me. I'm not for everyone, but like I might be for you. And no one can find you if you don't do that.
That's beautiful. I
Oh,
appreciate
thanks.
that.
Thank you for appreciating my content creation excitement. I'm at Penny Jupiter on Instagram.
Hello. I was wondering, how do you choose like what to like what document? So do you like already go in like knowing, oh, okay, I want to talk about this, or do you just like you wake up one day and you just have random thought, or you see something interesting, you're like, ooh, I want to film that.
I always feel like that. Like I feel like every day I'm like, ooh, you know? Like I walked into this building today and I was like, God, I miss art school. Wouldn't it be amazing to spend a year documenting an art school? You know what I mean? Like I feel that way constantly. It's just like second nature at this point. I'm like, my ear antenna's always up, like scanning. It's actually kind of exhausting. I can't read a book without, you know, wondering if it should be a movie, you know. So it's a constant scanning, and as I mentioned earlier, it's not hard for me to generate ideas. Like I have endless ideas, but you know, should I be the one doing it? Like, am I equipped to do it? You know, is there any path for me to do it? Are there any images? That's another problem I often have. Many of the stories I'm interested in, I'm just like, I can't really find any images here. Should it be a movie as opposed to a book or a magazine article? I feel like very few things pass that gauntlet, like all those steps, like from just, oh, wouldn't that be a neat idea to like, I'm gonna do this. The Flaco the Owl movie is an exception that like literally like, I was like, we're making this movie like the day he escaped from the zoo. It was like, as if it was like designed for me. I had been looking for a bird project for like 10 years. And I was like, I got it. I got it. This movie's gonna be so good. You guys are gonna love it. What else?
Hello. Now that you're a director, do you miss making independent films?
Yes. I mean, it's always easier to like regret the thing you don't have. Like the grass is in fact always greener. So yeah, I miss being able to do things like go to McDowell Colony for 2 months and like try something out that might or might not work. I don't have that. I just don't have that privilege anymore. I miss that. I miss that the most, I think. I miss that space to be, for it really not to matter if I fail. It matters differently now. Like, and I have some little side hustles, right? Like I mentioned I have my Substack, which is like doing really well, and I do like guest lectures and workshops, and I consult. So I have like a few pieces of things that contribute to the financial puzzle, but largely when I think about the projects that I'm doing, I'm thinking about my team. I don't want to lay them off, and it's like tough times right now. So I'm not like, oh, I just want to make money. It's like, that's so far from the feeling. It's like I'm picturing Nick, and I'm picturing Julia, and I'm picturing Gabriel, and I'm picturing our little production office that we've like built and decorated and like put so much love into and had such great times in. And I'm like, I want that. I want to keep that. That to me is very meaningful. So right now, I can only do projects that meet the criteria of will that help me keep this company together. I don't know if I'll succeed. Like we could check in a year or two, you know? I might not be able to. It might be too much overhead, you know, too much staff. I might need to go back to a smaller way of making, and then I'll miss this, right? So it's all, you know, pick your poison. I feel like I'm in the NBA. Like, who gets paid to be an artist? Like, no one, right? So, like, if you get to do it, maybe you get to do it for a few years, and that's, like, very impressive. So if it ended up only being, like, 6 years or 7 years, I think that'll be cool. And also, who gets paid to be an artist? And, like, I'm not doing genre. I'm not doing, like, shitty true crime. I'm not doing celebrity shit that's like a PR kit. Like, I haven't done any of that stuff. So, like, the fact that so I truly believe, like, I am making a living as an artist. Like, it's not, some of the projects have been, sort of commissions. Like, somebody brought me a project about this beauty pageant, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. Like, so it wasn't like my idea, like, from the beginning, but it was totally driven by me, and like, it was still like a real work of art that I made. So I haven't had to do, so I'm not like, I'm not just making like crap, which, maybe I would be open to now, but I have not had to do that yet.
Is there a threshold where you're like, you know what, going back to...
Well, we've had a no dead bodies rule for a long time, and I'm like, let's revisit the no dead bodies rule. And maybe there is a murder that we're interested in artistically. Like, of course that's possible. There's good murder movies, right? I just like, generally speaking, like, we've tried in our company, our unofficial company motto is we choose to LOL. Like, we're trying, like, it's not to deny that the world's a shit show, as was mentioned earlier. It's like not at all. It's in spite of that. It's in confrontation of that. It's like to defy that. Like, we choose to laugh. Like, I would be dead without laughter. So our projects have very much been ones that have allowed us to laugh, and that's mainly why we've tried to avoid like super depressing topics, or which also has been smart because most of documentary is like super depressing topics. So it's been good also, again, that ugly word branding, it's been good for that too, because then when there are production companies that have like topics they want to explore or access to a subject or something, they know who to call if it's going to be like maybe a little funnier, or maybe it's like kind of a lighter topic on like a less expected angle on like a lighter topic. They know who to call. So yeah, we try to have fun. Wait, I literally just, I don't know if you're like joking. I like just made a carousel on Instagram like 2 days ago. That's, it's 5 laugh out loud documentaries for dark times. So they're on there. But the one that comes to mind first is this movie called Listers. Have you guys seen Listers? Oh my God. It's like, it's this surprise hit where these 2 brothers, it came out last year, like last August, and 2 brothers, sort of on a bit of a whim or a joke, decide to spend a year doing extreme bird watching, because they think that's funny. It's like a little snarky at the beginning. They're like, this is weird, but they really commit to it. And over the course of the year they spend bird watching, develop like an absolutely sincere passion for birds. And as a birder, I put off watching it for a while because I thought it would be snarky and make fun of birders, and it's not at all. It's so funny. It's so warm. It's like full of love, totally handmade. The budget was $16,000. They made it totally themselves, put it on YouTube for free, no ads, and it has 3 million views. And I'm just like, I gotta meet those kids. Like, who are these guys? You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like that is such an interesting story, in addition to it being a super funny movie. I love that movie so much.
Listers. So that's on your Substack, the other 4?
Yes, and on Instagram, if you prefer. Is your hand up, or you just doing?
I'm just trying to,
Oh, hi.
Hi. I was wondering, like, what's your advice on, like, for someone making, like, independent projects or, like, independent, short films, all that stuff? Like, what's your advice to, like, get it seen by people? You know what I mean?
Such a good question. I mean, and it changes, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Like, it just changes and changes. Like, when I was in your shoes, as I mentioned, I was submitting to film festivals on VHS tape. Like, that was what I was doing. I remember getting into, like, Women in the Director's Chair. Remember that festival? What a great festival that was. And that was a huge honor for me at that moment that I got into that festival. So anyway, I think it always changes. And, on the one hand, it's like, you want to know your audience. On the other hand, I feel like you should protect yourself and just make whatever you want and not worry about that. But then once it's done, I feel like you can then start thinking about who the audience is.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be
Yeah.
ruled by that as you're making it. Make what you want to make. But then there's some point where it's done, and it's like now your job to like connect it to the people in the world who need to see it. And that's how you should think about it. Someone in the world needs to see this. Who are they, and how am I going to find them? And the answer is going to be different depending on the project, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's really depends. And I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of like doubling down on being a content creator right now because I'm really trying to think like, what does the real world look like? You know, how do people actually find the films they watch? And it's like it's actually not from being at Sundance. It's actually not from like getting a great Guggenheim. Like, no one knows about that stuff, you know? People find out about films from social media. And that is a huge, diverse world. It could mean Discord, it could mean Reddit, it could mean YouTube, it could mean Instagram, it could mean anything. But like somewhere out there in the world, there's people who like really want to see what you made, and it's up to you, because no one else is going to do it, to figure out how you're going to find them. And to think about, so I've started to think more clearly about if someone's like scrolling Instagram, you know, and I'm thinking about like a particular person. So Deborah mentioned a film I made called If You're Happy and You Know It, which is about children's music. And I had the idea, you know, kind of once it was done, again, because I don't spend a lot of time thinking about this as I'm making it. I probably should, but I usually wait till it's done, which sometimes I make mistakes, like using a lot of swear words in your movie about children's music when you later realize that maybe it should have been a family-friendly movie that like, so I keep doing that. But anyway, I was experimenting with making reels and making carousels and making content that's like, you know, sort of promoting that movie, that's connected to that movie. And I really thought, like, who do I think should find this movie? And I had like the vision of like the young parent with like little toddler or toddlers at home, and they're like, I cannot believe I have to listen to Baby Shark again today. And I can make something that explains to them very quickly that there's a doc about that there's like a whole movie about like Baby Shark, and that is something that you could see if you went over to HBO. So I mean, I'm getting into the details. My point is that I really tried to think about what would be like a headline on a reel that might make someone stop as they're scrolling, that's gonna answer a need that they have, a question that they're curious about, like that I can direct them to this like work of art that exists. So it's not to replace the art, it's in fact to support the art and to like find ways to help people find it. Because HBO doesn't care. They're not gonna market the movie. Like, they're gonna put it on the platform, and that's the end of their promotion. I made a movie about Kenny G, who has one of the biggest fandoms on the planet, and like that movie didn't even hit the top 10 on HBO. I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, really? You didn't like think maybe you could like try to let the Kenny G fandom know about this whole movie, you know? So it's just like really on you. Like, even when you have that support, it's like really on you. It's depressing. There's all these people getting paid to do like marketing and publicity that like, it's like, what are these people doing? Anyway, the economics of a streaming platform is very different than, you know, someone who needs to sell tickets to a movie theater or something. So I won't get stuck on that, but there's reasons why they don't care about marketing my Kenny G.
So hard to think about like what stops the scroll, because it's so.
Yes, it's very dependent, isn't it?
What stops your scroll?
Yeah, what stops your scroll? Yes, but most of these, yes, because most of these people aren't the audience for your movie. That's the thing. Most people don't want to watch your movie. Like, almost no one does. There's some people out there who do. Like, very few, actually. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, it's very few, unless you're Marvel. You know what I mean? Like, there's very few people that want to watch your film. So, like, it's like, yeah, my feed is full of all kinds of bird stuff and, like, cute cats and, like, whatever. And, like, I'm not making movies about that. I'm not the audience, in fact, for this movie. Like, I'm trying to reach parents with young children. I'm not even a parent. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, back to the cringe and the base. Like, how do you move past needing to make clickbaity titles and appeal to the masses, really?
Yeah, I mean,
which people get snooty about.
Oh God, I know. My rich friends find it very offensive that the videos are vertical. I'm like, okay, well, sorry. Don't make Instagram content then. I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to make them vertical. Or like, you know, I had one friend say to me, like, you know, so you have to like scare people or something. Like, you know, she'd like heard that social media was full of like division or whatever. I was like, I don't know, I'm just trying to write like funny jokes. Like I write jokes. I don't think that they're clickbaity. They're just like jokes, So I like a joke. I mean, I don't feel like that's putting anything bad into the world,
Okay, hello again. Okay, do you have any tips to like create like a fun movie, like a really like last minute, like 3 a.m, hey, I'm up, you're up, let's get together, I got a phone, you got a camera, and like really like able to turn that moment into like a memory or like.
I do not have any advice. It sounds
Okay.
like you have a good plan already.
Okay.
Call someone at 3 a.m. Yeah. I want to see your 3 a.m. movie. That's like a fun mental state. How are we doing on time, guys? Oh, okay. We can probably do like one. Oh yeah, it's 6:30. Let's do. If there's one more question, we can do it. But we should let you guys go. I'm trying to think if I have any like final thoughts, but yeah, like I said, I just really encourage you not to like get stuck in like a sort of snobbish mentality where you have to be this like pure artist. There's never been such a thing, I mean, so whatever you do in your life, whether you become a real estate agent and you make art on the side, or like, you become a professor, or you go out on your own, or like whatever it is, like you will have to find a way to like figure out that balance of like the business and the art. Like that's just reality, again, unless you're just independently wealthy, which like, great. My only ask of you is please make the weirdest shit you can make. Please. Like, it's like offensive to me when very wealthy people make very boring art. Like, it's like, come on. You didn't have to please anybody with this. Like, take a bigger swing, man. That's my only plea. Anyway, so I just think it's like good to sort of, not to get all upset about. Like, you're in grad school right now. Like, you get to like play. Oh, you're undergrads? Oh, it's a mix. Great, even better. You don't have to like, stress about it yet, right? But it's just good to sort of like start thinking about like the path after you leave this special magical circle of joy and fun and art. It's been really fun to spend the day in this building and soak up all the energy and like see everything on the walls and like the studios and everything. It's really inspiring. So thank you for letting me be here. Just looking at the camera.